American culture, huh? It's everywhere, isn't it? Always evolving, always kind of pushing the boundaries and influencing, well, not just us here, but people all over the globe. And it's way more than just, Hollywood and those big fast food chains. There's a real story behind how it all began and why it still resonates with so many people.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's what makes it so fascinating to really dig into. When you start to look beneath the surface, beyond those stereotypes, you discover these really fascinating layers of influences and all these transformations it's gone through. Like it's almost like a journey through time.
That's a great way to put it, a journey through time. And that's exactly what we're going to try to do today, right? We've got a ton of information here. We're going to dive deep, really try to understand those key insights, those moments that really shaped American culture into what we see and experience today. You ready to go back in time a little bit?
I'm ready. Let's do it. Let's set the stage, go back to the 17th and 18th centuries. That's when a lot of those foundational elements start to emerge. We see those European settlers arriving, mostly from Britain.
Right. And they're not just, bringing themselves over. They're bringing their entire worlds, right? Their languages, their traditions, those deep religious beliefs. And something I think is really crucial here, that desire to govern themselves, right? That yearning for autonomy. It seems like that's a key ingredient right from the start.
It really was. And this initial wave of, diverse groups, they laid the groundwork for what a lot of people call the melting pot of American culture. It's a powerful image, right? It suggests this blend of cultures and ideas and customs all coming together. And while the term itself, it's, got some complexities we could probably spend a whole nother episode unpacking, it does give us a good starting point for understanding how all these different influences started to interact.
Melting pot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes you think of things sort of blending smoothly together. But I imagine in those early days, it was probably more like a bunch of distinct ingredients, right? Interacting, yeah, sometimes maybe harmoniously, sometimes probably more often with a lot of friction. Do you have some examples of those early distinct influences that sort of formed the base of this mix?
For sure. We can't talk about early American culture without acknowledging the contributions of Native American cultures, their art, their agriculture, which, helped those early colonies survive, their spiritual beliefs. All of those things were woven into early colonial life. I mean, their relationship with the land, their knowledge, it was foundational.
Absolutely. It's so important to remember that we're talking about established societies, societies with their own rich cultures, sharing knowledge and resources with these, well, newcomers.
Right. And then we have the influence of African cultures brought over, tragically through the transatlantic slave trade. It's a horrific part of history. But despite that, their music, their food, their storytelling, those traditions became a part of American culture right from the very beginning.
Yeah, it's a stark reminder that so much of what we think of as American culture has roots in some really dark chapters. But we have to acknowledge that impact, even within those conditions to really understand how it all evolved.
I agree 100%. And we can't forget the impact of religious groups like the Puritans. They had this strong emphasis on education. I mean, they wanted everyone to be able to read the Bible, right? Plus, that strong moral framework and a belief in hard work, all of that had a lasting impact on American values. Think about that emphasis on education. That helped to set the stage for the development of schools and universities in America.
Wow. So you got all these different groups with different perspectives, different ways of life. Sometimes they're blending, sometimes they're clashing. It sounds like those early days were dynamic, if not always peaceful.
Yeah, exactly. These diverse and often competing elements, they were the first brushstrokes on the canvas of American identity. It was a unique and a complex cultural mosaic right from the start.
Okay, so we've got these foundational pieces in play. What happens next? What's that next big event that really shakes things up?
Well, that would have to be the American Revolution from 1775 to 1783. This wasn't just a political break from Britain. It was a huge cultural awakening.
It wasn't just about, getting rid of a government. It was about creating this whole new way of thinking about individuals in society, right?
Exactly. The revolution was all about new ideals, the rights of individuals, the concept of liberty, democratic governance. These weren't just theories. They were ideas that had a huge impact on the culture that was developing.
And we still feel those ideas today, right? I mean, phrases like life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, those aren't just historical quotes. They represent core American values. They're still so powerful.
Oh, absolutely. And after the revolution, we start to see American art, literature, and even education reflecting these new ideals. There was a conscious effort to define what it meant to be American, not just geographically, but culturally.
And figures like Thomas Paine and Benjamin Franklin come to mind here. They weren't just fighting a political battle. They were shaping the intellectual and cultural landscape of this new nation.
They were essential in articulating and popularizing these revolutionary concepts, which had a profound impact on American culture. They helped to define what this new nation stood for.
And even music played a role, right? Think about songs like Yankee Doodle.
You got it. Yankee Doodle and later anthems like the Star-Spangled Banner, they were powerful expressions of national identity. They gave people a sense of belonging in this new republic, something to rally around.
So the revolution wasn't just about independence. It was about this new sense of cultural confidence, this belief in shaping their own destiny. Do you think that's something that still runs through American culture today?
Definitely. That self-determination, that can-do spirit, it's a big part of the American psyche. You see it in technology, business, even just everyday life. That sense of possibility.
Okay, so the nation's established, fueled by those revolutionary ideals. What's the next big wave that comes along and reshapes things?
That would be the Industrial Revolution and modernization. It spanned the 19th and early 20th centuries and completely changed how Americans lived and interacted.
Factories, railroads, all those new technologies. It must have changed daily life for so many people.
It did. Industry led to urbanization. People were moving from rural areas to cities for work. It changed social structures, families, how people spent their free time. Communication was changing rapidly, too.
And this is when the American dream really starts to take hold, right? That idea that you can achieve success through hard work no matter where you come from.
Exactly. The American dream, that idea of upward mobility, a better future through individual effort, it became a central theme in American culture. And along with industrialization, you have this rise of consumer culture.
Department stores, advertising, mass-produced goods. What are some of those iconic examples of this shift?
Think about Coca-Cola and Ford automobiles. These weren't just products. They became symbols of this new modern society and what was possible, symbols of aspiration.
And then there's jazz. It feels like such a uniquely American art form that was born during this time of immense change.
Oh, it is. Jazz emerged from African-American communities in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. It blended different musical traditions. It was all about improvisation, syncopation, and raw emotion. It quickly became a symbol of modern America, dynamic, innovative, and breaking new ground.
It wasn't just jazz either. Radio and cinema were taking off. American culture was being shared on a scale that no one had ever seen before.
So true. These new technologies, they played a huge role in shaping cultural experiences and sharing American stories and entertainment with massive audiences at home and abroad. And then you have the Harlem Renaissance in the 1920s.
Oh, right, the Harlem Renaissance. This explosion of African-American art, literature, and music. It wasn't just a cultural moment. It changed American identity.
Yeah, it did. The Harlem Renaissance showcased the incredible talent and cultural richness within the African American community. It challenged stereotypes and truly enriched American culture in such a meaningful way. So modernization wasn't just about technology, it was about a profound cultural shift as well.
Okay, so America's industrialized, modernized, and its cultural identity is becoming more defined. What's the next chapter? What takes American culture global?
The mid-20th century after World War II is when things really start to change. The U.S. emerges as a global power, and with that, American culture starts to reach a global audience.
So American culture is becoming a major export. What are some of the things that were gaining popularity around the world?
Hollywood movies, for one. People were captivated by American stories and stars. Then you have pop music, which resonated with young people everywhere. Fast food chains, offering convenience and that familiar experience, they started expanding internationally. And American fashion, like blue jeans, became popular all over the world. And of course, technology was also starting to have a huge global impact.
It's amazing to think about teenagers in different countries wearing jeans, listening to Elvis, maybe dreaming about visiting places they saw in American movies. It's a really powerful form of influence.
It is. Certain figures and brands became instantly recognizable worldwide. Marilyn Monroe, Michael Jackson, McDonald's, Levi's, Apple, they became cultural touchstones.
And it just kept getting easier to access with television and then the internet. Suddenly people could watch American sitcoms and use American software no matter where they lived.
Exactly. Shows like Friends, The Simpsons, and more recently Stranger Things have huge global fan bases, and the internet has made it all even more accessible.
Now, there's also been this conversation about the impact of all this, right? The idea of cultural imperialism, where American media might be overshadowing or even pushing out local cultures.
That's an important point. The sheer volume of American media has raised concerns about the potential for local cultures to be lost or diluted. Cultural imperialism is that idea that one dominant culture can overpower others through its media and cultural products.
But it's not a one-way street anymore, right? We're seeing influences flow back into the U.S. from other parts of the world.
Absolutely. It's a two-way exchange now. The popularity of K-pop in America or the influence of Latin music on the charts, those are great examples of global culture shaping American tastes.
It's not just America broadcasting outward, it's receiving and adapting. It's a much more complex global conversation.
Exactly. Culture is much more interconnected than ever before.
So that brings us to today. How would you describe American culture in this globalized world?
It's diverse, it's digital, and it's constantly evolving. It's always changing.
The internet and social media have really changed how culture is shared and who has influence, haven't they? Anyone can become a content creator now, a trendsetter.
That's right. Platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube have given a voice to so many different people and creative expressions. They have a global reach.
And it feels like there's more visibility and acceptance of diversity these days. In food, in politics, in how people express themselves.
Yeah, there is. There's more recognition of different backgrounds, beliefs, and lifestyles. It makes for a much richer cultural landscape.
But of course, it's not perfect. We still see big cultural debates, especially about things like race, gender, and freedom of speech.
You're right. Those debates are important. They show that American culture is dynamic, different perspectives are being shared and challenged, and that's part of the process.
But even with those debates, there's still that drive for innovation and creativity, whether it's in Silicon Valley or in the arts. It's still a defining characteristic.
Absolutely. Innovation and pushing boundaries are essential parts of American culture. Always looking forward, looking for what's next.
Okay, so looking back at the whole picture, from those first settlers to today, what would you say is the most important thing to understand about American culture?
I think the key takeaway is that it's not static. It's always changing. It's been shaped by centuries of interaction, conflict, innovation, and adaptation. It's a dynamic process.
It's a culture that embraces contradictions. It's individualistic and collective at the same time. It holds on to tradition while embracing new ideas.
Exactly. And it often thrives on that tension. It celebrates individuality while also creating shared experiences. It's constantly pushing the boundaries of how people express themselves and define who they are. It never sits still.
And it makes you think about how all of this history is still shaping us today, wherever we are in the world, how we understand culture, how we see ourselves. It's a process, an evolution.
It is. It's a story that's still being written.
Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive into American culture. It's a fascinating story. I encourage everyone listening to keep exploring, to keep thinking about the forces that shape our world. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for having me. It was great to be here.
Until next time.